Salutations, everybody. It is Maddie here today, and things are heating up. You feel that? It's getting hot in here, and it's not because I'm on camera. It's because we're talking about E3, the most wonderful time of the year. Sorry, I'm sure you're a little uncomfortable after that. Today, we talk about the connective tissue between Xbox and Bethesda's E3 conference, which is supposedly Starfield. There's been a lot of information circulating about this game that I want to get to in today's video. Also, because we're talking about the two conferences together, there's Forza Horizon 5 rumors, Halo Infinite rumors, there's even new Xbox reveals that seem to be coming at E3, and they're being teased online, so we got to talk about all of that in this gigantic, speculative, rumor-filled video. So with all of that out of the way, if you're new here and you want to see a little more Bethesda, a little more Xbox, I can be your man. Allow me to inform you. And with that, let's talk about Starfield. So I was sent this on my own personal Patreon Discord. Shout out to the patrons. Appreciate all of you giving me this information. But anyway, this was brought to my attention and I put it out on Twitter reporting that, hey, I said in January and February that Starfield was being planned to release this year. And at the minimum, we would get a 2021 reveal. Now, what we're seeing here is a copyright notice update on ZeniMax's own website where we can see Starfield is copyrighted for 2021. This became a lot more plausible for me when you started to look at other games underneath ZeniMax's copyright notice updates like Fallout 4 for 2015, its release year, as well as Doom Eternal for 2020, its release year. And there's many other games throughout Bethesda's entire history that have their own release dates coincide with that notice update. So it seems more and more likely that Bethesda is committing to that 2021 date, at least internally. So when I put this out on my Twitter account just to share the information with people, what ended up happening was Clobril, a pretty well-known Xbox insider as well as just Xbox fan, quote tweeted me and said that I guess this means something will happen with Starfield publicly this year. Quote, the general rule is that the year in a copyright notice is the year of first publication of work. First publication is when work is made available to the public without restriction, and then tagged Hogue Law in that quote, to which Hogue had to say, I don't know what their standard convention is. I would say it reads more as they think something could happen this year, but it's no guarantee, especially with pandemic working conditions. So that's actually what I tagged onto my thread, is that I have been told 2021 is the year for Starfield. That is the goal. They want to have it revealed at E3. I've said this before, so none of this should be news to people who have consistently watched my channel. But what happened is when I put this thread out, of course, it got scooped up by a couple websites. It got scooped up on Reddit. And I saw someone, when I clarified that, hey, there is the chance Starfield gets delayed into 2022, a comment was posted saying, well, it's just so that he's not wrong. And to me, I wanted to emphasize that nice and upfront here, that people seemingly don't understand the nature of game development as it is, let alone pandemic game development. Now, I understand it's kind of a frustrating topic nowadays because we've heard for over a year now the pandemic has ruined game development. It's making things so tough while you see other industries around you adjusting. I understand the frustration with that. Really, what's getting hit the hardest is QA, the ability to not make the game, but really test the game rigorously and make sure it's in functioning condition. So when myself and other people put out scoops and say like, hey, this thing can get delayed, it's not because we're protecting our own ass so we're not wrong. I mean, yeah, with any leak or bit of information you're putting out there that's really unconfirmed, you are sticking your neck out a little bit, of course. But what people don't seem to be understanding is that when it comes to games this year, anything can be delayed because things can go haywire very quickly. Now, we do have other reports here, things that I can go ahead and corroborate, which are suggesting that Starfield should be releasing this year. So we're going to get into that, but I want to make it clear up front that when Jeff Grubb or Jason Schreier or myself or anyone else for that matter comes out and says something with a scoop and that, hey, this thing may get delayed, it's not to cover our ass necessarily. It's because that's just how things are right now, because things can get pushed back in a moment's notice. It's why you haven't seen as many E3 leaks yet. We'll likely see a lot coming up in May, but right now plans aren't solidified and we're at the end of April moving into May at the time of recording this video. I think that says a lot because of how uncertain things are, that even a month out, some companies are like, are we actually doing this? Can we comfortably do this? That should say a lot to a lot of consumers. Recapping some old information here, I wanted to go ahead and surface this for the argument of Starfield, and then we'll move into other Xbox-related leaks. But once again, I know this is the main focal point for a lot of people. They want to see Xbox have that big IP, that big get, and potentially that big exclusive, which I am anticipating as well. So there isn't a release date yet for Starfield, but Todd Howard said in an interview with The Guardian that, quote, "We've been talking about it for a decade. We started putting things on paper 5-6 years ago, and active development was when we finished Fallout 4, so 2.5, 3 years." And that would obviously put them at Nuka World, which I've also said before. I apologize if it sounds like I'm reiterating anything. I just want to make sure for new listeners coming in, they have all the information there. But yeah, Nuka World, 2016, August, around the time that Starfield entered full development. 76 was further along because, of course, it had assets made for it, and they were being reused pretty heavily in this game, which is common in game development. And so what happened was they just went ahead, took all that manpower off of Starfield for a little bit, finished up 76, pushed it out the door, and then went back to Starfield, which has been in full production for now about 5 years. Furthermore, I saw this on Destin Legary's own personal YouTube channel. I wanted to throw it out there, is that when Bethesda Game Studios expanded to Bethesda Game Studios Dallas with a brand new office, Todd Howard said, "We've been working with Tom, Mark, and the team at Escalation Studios for a long time." That's what they were formerly known as. "They've already delivered amazing games with us, and we knew we could do even bigger things together," said Todd Howard, game director and executive producer at Bethesda Game Studios. "It's an incredible team in Dallas, and they're already contributing to key parts of Fallout 76 and Starfield," end quote. So what's interesting about this press release is it was put out in 2018, and then you look at, of course, when Starfield was starting development actively in 2016, and that's when Escalation Studios joined the family. So the timeline's matching up with the 4 to 5 year dev cycle that AAA titles take. It seems more and more obvious that Starfield will be within the next year, like in that time period. That much should be clear. Last but not least, we have Randall Thor, who hosts Xbox 2 and is one of the more prominent Xbox YouTubers, who shared a scoop on his own podcast saying, "I've been told by very reliable people that Starfield was 100% an Xbox exclusive. I even made bets about it, and I don't bet unless I know I'm willing to win," I think is what the original quote was. So I'm really, really confident that Starfield is only releasing on Xbox when it does, and I've been told as well that Microsoft is trying their hardest to get the game out for this holiday. They really want Starfield out this holiday. The game's basically finished. It's in bug squashing mode right now, very much like Halo Infinite, and it would be a big boon for Game Pass and Xbox if both Halo and Starfield could launch this fall. Furthermore, Clobril went ahead over on Reset Era and added in that Age of Empires 4 and all of the Starfield, Halo, Forza Horizon trifecta, and this would be their AAA quadruple punch for the summer, independent of whether or not all 4 of these actually make a release here or not. What kind of sucks about the whole thing with Clobril there is that that was speculation, but it's being picked up like it's an actual story because he's reported so much inside information. Whereas I think Randall Thor's quote should be the one that is making the rounds. You know, he works with Jez Corden, another person that we're going to feature in this video here today. Just the whole Xbox community is in this video, I swear to God. But, you know, when I look at Randall Thor's quote, I think it's important because Xbox exclusivity is something I think we all thought was a no-brainer. And it seems pretty obvious because Bethesda was shopping that to PlayStation. And so why would they offer that IP to PlayStation, and when Xbox buys them, they go, "We want to go multi-plat now"? I don't think that makes any sense. So I believe that scoop from Randall. And with that, let's move on to the rest of E3 with Xbox entirely. I know that was a very Starfield-loaded segment, but it's, like I said, going to serve as the connective tissue between Xbox and Bethesda's E3 conference. And I wanted to go ahead and start off by showing what Jeff Grubb had to say about what's going on with Bethesda and Xbox's conference. So let's take a look at 2 clips. One is an updated prediction by Jeff Grubb, and the other is rather informed opinion, if you will.
Say, in the past, I've said I like was like 75% confident, 80% confident they're going to show Starfield. I think we could bump that up to like 85, 90% confident.
Man, dang.
Yeah, I think they're going to show Starfield. So there's your small little leak. To the point where I'm like, I would probably like bet on it. On vacation this week, if you look at his Twitter. So things aren't going to change because they're taking a little bit of a break before they get to the actual E3. And so when they get back, I'm sure the real decisions will be made about whether or not they're going to have these games ready to go. My hunch is you probably feel pretty comfortable going on vacation if you think that things are going to work out. And things working out does mean Starfield will be there, showing up at E3. I think that what I've said in the past about Xbox Bethesda still holds true. And in the best, I've presented this as a prediction, but it's like an informed prediction, and it still is an informed prediction that Xbox will have its show. They'll talk about Halo. They'll probably talk about Forza Horizon 5. They will then begin to transition into Bethesda with Starfield, I think, and then Bethesda will have its own showcase, but they'll be glued together by Starfield.
So I anticipate this going a lot like how Xbox and Bethesda worked with Fallout 76, where in the Xbox conference, we saw a Fallout 76 trailer before Bethesda went out on stage and showed the game for half an hour. I remember even as a Bethesda content creator at that time, primarily being really caught off guard and having to hustle through my trailer analysis before the actual conference for Bethesda began. It was a really crazy position to get thrown into. But anyway, I think that's important to note because that should be an expectation. But what about beyond that? Well, Jez Corden over on his Twitter account teased some very clever emojis. So the first one looks to be Forza Horizon set in Mexico or Brazil. I've seen some speculation about either of those. One is Starfield. The next, Halo Infinite. I love how we have to decipher all of this. And then the next two have been some peculiar projects that I think a lot of people around the industry are in the know about. I know what both these are, which is kind of unfortunate because I can't sit here and speculate. All I can really say is one of them is like a brand new thing. Outside of that, I think any more information would spoil things, and I don't want to do that. I'm not interested in doing that. When I get information, it's really on stuff that we know exists. These are brand new things, and one of them in particular, this is not a scoop, by the way, but will surprise you, I think. I don't know if it'll be on the level of like loud, whoa, kind of extreme excitement, but I still think it's going to be something that particular fans are going to be interested in. And I don't want to say anything beyond that, but what I will say is Xbox is going to make some pretty aggressive plays, as I think you'd anticipate, and that these will be Game Pass games as well, which is very important to note because come the fall period or whenever these games release, this will be more money in your pocket. So I will identify what these games are when they're revealed, whether it's on my stream when we're reacting to the thing, or of course in a podcast of some form, whether it's Ham Radio or Defining Duke. I will absolutely identify what they are because I don't want to be that person who oh, I know the thing and just kind of disappears. I try to share information when I can, but typically it's when I can corroborate it publicly because I have no interest in just being a leaker. I have ambitions beyond that, some of which you'll see very soon. But anyway, when it comes to Xbox's E3 conference, yeah, I think they're going to swing pretty hard. I think this is the time to do that, is when you've got Sony ever so slightly on their back foot. They've sort of rebounded after a rough couple of weeks, which is good. I'm happy to see them do that. But I think with them actually having momentum and being able to absorb like a week from the industry and get people talking about things, something they previously couldn't do with Xbox One, just being able to dominate that news cycle, I fully anticipate Xbox to literally come out and swing as hard as they can. I'm talking pre-announcing things that may not be ready, one of which I am very excited about. So with that, I will leave you with my anticipation. I think it's going to be a really good time. I think people should be excited. I don't want to overhype things, but if what I've heard ends up being true, it's going to be a pretty monumental E3 in the terms of what gets announced. So let me know what you think of all of this in the comments down below. Be sure to share the video around. Starfield information always helps, so I know a lot of people are looking forward to that. And with that, I leave it to you. Let me know what you're thinking. Other than that, follow me on Twitter, follow me on Instagram. Those links are in the description down below. Big thank you to all the patrons. Once again, they're the reason I caught this information about the copyright notice for Bethesda. So thank you to them, and I'll talk with all of you soon. Stay sexy, stay active. I love you all. Peace.